Hey guys, welcome to the C4 Corvette build. I'm working on a budget turbo kit with bone stock internals. Everything I'm working to do over here is just going to be a bolt-on to the stock motor. It's just a stock 350 small block Chevy. It used to be an L98. These are all the L98 components right over here. We have the air intake, the plenum, throttle body, the fuel rail somewhere over there. But everything is taken off, so I can't wait to show you guys what's under the hood. Don't worry, it's not dunked out, it's just on jack stands. That's why the front end looks like it's lifted really high. And here's what we have so far. It's just a small block Chevy at the heart of this C4 Corvette. It's a 4-barrel carbureted style intake that we have on here right now. We're not running any of the TPI system right now. You can still see a couple of the wires. This is the injector harness that we have right here. But this is going to be compatible with the Phytech EFI system or the Holley EFI, whichever we decide to run. It's just going to sit bolting on right here, totally take control of engine management, throttle position, and all that good stuff. So I know some of this may seem a little counterproductive, but running a aftermarket EFI system is just going to simplify the whole setup of this engine. The L98 engine was hugely suffocated by emission laws in the 80s, but what this is going to do is kind of put it back an era before they had all those emission regulations, and it's going to put us so that we can do any sort of mods that we need to do after. And as soon as something does break, like I was saying in a previous video, we're going to be able to fix whatever broke, upgrade it, and then we shouldn't have a problem again. And we don't even need to do a retune because the carbureted EFI systems are designed to keep retuning themselves as you drive. So we shouldn't have any issues with doing any future upgrades. So the outlet we have here on the water housing is a little bit different than the one on the stock L98. So as you can see, it's pointing in the polar opposite direction is where we need it to go. So the solution for that is super simple. It's a swivel style thermostat housing, so when you place it down over here, you can just swivel the head to face whichever direction you need. There's a gasket on the underside and you just bolt it down. So once the thermostat is under here and it gets bolted down, you're able to swivel this to go whichever direction you need. And we might just need a little bit of a longer hose that's going to reach from the radiator into that water housing because it is back a little bit. The stock location is right about over here. So that's a minor issue you could have while turboing your C4 Corvette. Another minor issue you could have is right about here. There's a temperature sender that goes into your gauge cluster in your dashboard. So this temperature sender is a little bit in the way of these headers. So we're actually going to have to clog this right over here. Just put in a little plug, and then we'll have to relocate the temperature sender to right over here on the side of the intake manifold. That's a possibility, and we can also just cut the bottom of the header. There's a little space right over here. If we just cut the bottom side of this mounting for the header, we should also be able to fit it right over and snugly over that sensor. Now with this style intake manifold, we have a crossover tube. This header comes down, it goes underneath the engine. There's a crossover tube that it fits, and it pops up over on the passenger side of the engine. This crossover tube is going to come right over here, and then it goes into the turbo right over here. So you have all of your exhaust gas going into the turbo, so you can run a hood exit exhaust, you can run a downpipe that comes down to the tail of your exhaust, or whatever you want to do. But the problem with that is the wastegate flange is right over here, and this is all the way up against the frame of the car. There's no way. This is touching the frame of the car. It's a really tight fit. So what you can do is you can take this, make a little cut right over here, swivel this flange 180 degrees, and the flange will face this way, so you'll be able to put it right here, right underneath your turbo. You can keep your wastegate down right there. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I've actually been practicing welding a little bit so I can make a nice clean weld on here, and then we should be able to just put the wastegate right over there. That's probably the biggest issue I'm facing right now. Everything else is going super smoothly. One thing that I was a little bit nervous about when I first started this build was I wasn't sure where the oil feed and oil drain was going to go. This right here is the oil pressure sensor and oil pressure sending unit. It's on the back of the engine block, and as you can see, I ran this gold T-fitting, but what it does is it lets me run an oil feed line from there, and as you can see, the oil feed comes around. It's actually going to go to the passenger side of the car. Obviously that's where the turbo is going to be. Now the oil drain line is going to be a little more complicated. It's on the passenger side of the car. So if you can see in the corner down there, there's actually a little hole. That's where the fuel pump block-off plate is. Before any sort of electronic fuel pump, there used to be a mechanical fuel pump down there, and they didn't want to change the entire block to remanufacture the whole engine, so all they did was put up a little block-off plate there. Here's a block-off plate right here. It's held by 4 bolts, and then we're going to run this big 10 AN that comes down from the turbo and down into the block off plate. That should be plenty enough gravity to make it feed all the way down to the bottom. For lack of better terms, this car has just been such a doll when it comes to taking stuff off. Everything is super simple, like I kind of expected it would be, being an older engine and all that. But there's nothing really weird in here. I can't wait to get rid of all this 80s technology, all these old wires and stuff like that, all the old TPI stuff. It's probably, for one, going to take off some weight off the car, and it's also going to make it look a lot cleaner over here. I know it looks like a total rat's nest all back here, but none of this stuff. We're not going to need any of these wires. And I didn't break anything yet. I kept all my old stock TPI stuff, one, in case somebody else wants it, and two, in case I have another TPI engine in the future and I don't want to do this exact build and I just have some spare parts. But we're definitely not going back with this car. So this right here is a total lie. I'm just so excited about this build because the small block Chevy 350 just has so much potential. So many people have built them in the past, and I'm not really sure. I'm sure someone's built it with a pretty good budget. I don't know of anybody that put it in a C4 Corvette and put, like, you know, $2 or $3 grand into the car total, and then just the car just becomes a total monster. Obviously the original goal was to make sure that I could at least beat a C8 Corvette, but if I could beat, you know, a C7, that's still a huge feat. A $2,000 or $3,000 car that ends up beating a car that's, you know, 40 or 50 grand. If we beat a C8 Corvette, which go for around 80 or 90 grand nowadays, it's pretty crazy of a feat. So I'm just like super excited. If this all goes well, I might end up buying like 2 or 3 more cars with the small block Chevy and just see what kind of power goals I can make out of them and see how low of a budget I can do, because this is really an extreme budget. You can just barely get a car in some states for 2 or 3 grand. So I'm really excited to make this a really fast, cool car, see how long the engine lasts, and kind of open my route for new builds in the future. So I just want to thank you guys again for watching. You guys have a great day.